Oh, hello, everyone. Yes, we're late, but we were talking. So, um, welcome. Thank you for everyone who is joining us tonight. By the way, this is the Physicist and Philosopher Hour. I am the philosopher, Wayne Steiger, and our physicist is Dr. Claudia Albers. And Dr. Albers, just let everyone know, is feeling a little bit under the weather, but she loves doing this. So, Claudia, how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I wasn't feeling well yesterday. I'm a bit better today.
Okay, all right. So, everyone, just wanted to let you know. By the way, hello to all the moderators, everyone that's in here. I mean, the room's filling up quick, Claudia.
Good.
So, Claudia, I titled tonight's episode "Physics."
Uh-huh.
I read an article yesterday that I thought was very interesting. It's, by the way, your peers who the guy, when he wrote this, said that modern physics is at a dead end. And he was lamenting the fact that the theories that so much physicists have built their models upon are showing to be flawed. And this means that we've gone down for the last 50 years, rabbit holes is what I would interpret. But he said basically we were going, that physics was going off of these dead ends. And
Yeah.
so what
That's
do you
very
think?
interesting. That's
Yes.
very interesting because basically it is true because physics has forgotten what it's supposed to be about. And it's supposed to be about simplification. It used to be that physicists believe that the simpler you can make your theories, the better they are. But they've gone off the deep end by deciding that we must now make everything very complex. So you cannot even figure out where you are in a theory anymore because the human mind cannot understand everything that is connected to that theory. So physicists have specialized, they do not see the big picture anymore. And it's about now very complex mathematics and very complex simulations. Rather than understand, they're not interested in understanding the universe. They're just interested in building a theory upon a theory. So it doesn't go back to and check. And even if it's checked with observation, sometimes the observations tell you that the theory has gone off on the wrong track, but you cannot stop. It's like a train that keeps going faster and faster and faster, and they refuse to slow it down and even look at what station they're on.
Very good
And
metaphor,
that's the
aren't it?
problem.
Exactly. And this article went on to state, Claudia, that he said what physics was about exploration. It was about putting what was observed to what we could then determine what was driving it, etc. And he said that the society, your community, has ostracized so many what he called the thinkers that open up new thoughts. And again, he was saying that so many of the models are flawed. And this is now where we're in this confusion state. And you are a victim of that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because, they started out with the peer review system, which is supposed to not allow any paradigm shift in physics. It just doesn't allow it. You have to work within the current accepted paradigm. So there's no innovation whatsoever. You just build on old theories, even if they are wrong. Even if you know they are wrong, you will not be able to publish your papers unless you agree with the current accepted theory. That he's absolutely right.
So that just drives the thinkers, the brilliant thinkers underground.
Absolutely. You're not allowed to think outside the box anymore.
Can I ask
And
you?
if you do, then you ostracized, as he says, and you get fired, like, or you get pushed out, like I did. I was.
And never ever have the opportunity to be published again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And also, the way that I like to do physics is the old way, and that is to think logically, step by step, based on observation, and make it as simple as possible. It's also good to explain it to people, but I believe physics should be simple. You should be able to explain it in words and with diagrams. I mean, sometimes I use a little bit of mathematics, but physics is, to me, it's supposed to be simple. If the simple doesn't work, then you may have to complicate it a little bit more, but usually it starts with something simple, and that's looked down upon by accepted physics, because they want complicated mathematics, and they want to feel like, oh, no one's supposed to understand what we are doing. Then we know we are really important.
And that'll get you funding as well.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I have a question. So how I see physics today is this. We see, or what we defined as the infinite. But it appears to me that physics is trying to then confine the infinite to a finite formula.
Well, physics, we can never look at anything within that is infinite, because
that's a paradigm. I mean, it's a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's difficult, because the thing is, whenever our theories end up with an infinity, then that should tell us that there's something wrong with the theory. But so there are two ways of looking at this. So we may be looking in an infinite universe, but we cannot see it all the way to infinity. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is that physics itself and mathematics, when it gives you an infinity, it means that we've gone off what is physically possible. So in other words, just the fact that you get an infinite mass at a black hole should tell you there's something wrong with gravity and allowing collapse of matter.
See, in fact, I was just reading, the redshift, that, the whole thing about black holes is that if it's gravity that's then collapsing as even one of the particles like iron, that when you start collapsing it, how does gravity do that? Yet at the same time, gravity doesn't crush us.
Yeah, the problem is that you get an infinity. An infinity is impossible to work with. There's nothing you can do with it. You multiply infinity by anything, you're going to get infinity back.
That's true. I thought really.
So there's nothing you can do with an infinity. An infinity should tell you there's something wrong. And the thing is, the observations themselves show you that, and that's about what we've observed. I mean, I can only go back to what we've observed in the solar system, which is the stellar cores that are often much larger than the sun, and should have, therefore, according to accepted theory, have collapsed into and become black holes, because they did stars, and they haven't. They just the opposite. They low gravitational bodies. They have a very small gravitational field. It's actually they have a high mass, but very low gravitational influence, because it's actually the gravitational constants through which they interact that is almost zero.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So when I think of black holes, I get this idea of something that's billions of miles across, potentially light years across. But could it be possible as well that if black holes exist, and I know that defies the electric universe theory, but let's just go for sake of argument on this one, would they be restricted to size? I mean, it seems to me that you could probably have a black hole that would be very condensed concentrically, couldn't you, theoretically?
Yeah, the thing is, what makes it an infinity is the fact that it collapses into a point.
The singularity?
So you have a certain amount of mass contracted to a volume that is basically zero. That's what makes it infinite.
And anything you multiply by zero.
Yeah, so basically, it's impossible in the physical universe to have something like that.
Changing gears. And I have some headlines that we want to talk, but I want to talk to you, Claudia, and get your point of view from a physicist. The event we're going to be looking at again that happened on 11/11, the sound that was heard around the world that wasn't felt, and you and I had talked about this before we had come on. There have been more, Claudia, I have literally got hundreds of emails from people that have written me that are missing time.
That's very strange.
And so what's your thought on it? I mean, it can't be this random.
I was going to write an article on it, but I haven't got around to it yet. But I noticed that the signal repeated every 17 seconds, and it was absolutely regular. And so that means that I don't think it was a natural signal. I think it was artificial. I think someone emitted the signal so that it would be picked up by the seismographs. And so someone did it. It was an artificial signal that was sent out. And
you think we have the technology to do that, mankind?
Yeah, reverse engineered alien technology, and you know that we've had that since the Second World War. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that is beyond what we allowed to study or know on the surface. But yeah, there are groups of people that have a lot more technology than we can even imagine.
Yeah, I read that they said actually from the epicenter that the island right there had moved, I believe it was 2.5 inches to the east and 1.5 inches to the south. So what I don't understand is that, okay, so you had this displacement of mantle. That was a pretty good jump.
It's not necessarily connected.
Right.
The signal itself that was sent, I believe that was artificial. An island moving, that may be a natural occurrence because, as you know, we have the Planet X system objects that are coming in and are causing huge fissures and huge movement, sometimes within a few minutes. So that may have been due to one of these objects approaching that region. Also, they are bringing magma to the surface. They can do all that. But I think the signal itself that was picked up on seismographs, I think that was an artificial signal.
Yeah, and I understand, and hats off to, I think it was Mr. MBBB, who took the time and found the anomaly registered around the world at 6.2 miles uniform. That can't happen. That I mean, you know, a seismic wave is just that. It oscillates because it's hitting through different variances of mass.
Yeah, I mean, it should have, it cannot be that regular. Even if it's even an earthquake caused by these objects, because it moves through different densities of rock, should not be that regular. So to me,
20 minutes.
Yeah, that was an artificial signal, definitely. It was just too neat to be natural.
And in fact, that's what I read. One commentator was saying it was exactly that. This was too neat. The signal was in a very narrow bandwidth. Seismic oscillation waves do not do that. They are, again, they oscillate.
Yeah.
The uniformity of 6.2 miles underneath. Now that doesn't sound right. It said that the earth rang like a bell.
Yeah.
How is that possible, Claudia? I mean, we know that.
I wrote an article about the 11/11 as well, and how they did all kinds of things. And I think the powers that be are sending a message saying they're about to do something. You know, they did all these things about the Geiger stones or something like that, how they want to decrease the population by a certain amount. And
It's the Georgia Stones, yes.
the Georgia Geiger stones, yes.
That's a freaky place. I mean,
Yeah, and do you know what? I think they have a plan, and their plans are evil.
if you ever get the chance, you and Scott ought to go there. You ought to take a trip down there. It's got a weird vibration to it. The energy that, the best I can tell you, is that it's intense.
You've been there.
Yeah, and you can actually sense it. And anytime you see something in stone that says that the population should be no more than 500 million, you're going, all right.
Maybe we should start with them.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. So, speaking of which, I pulled up some articles and thought that we might have a look at them.
Okay.
So, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, NASA scientists say Earth may have been visited by aliens. Well, call me suspicious, but I get this, I don't know, this slimy, greasy feeling that we're being set up. I mean, they're spoon feeding us disclosure.
Yeah, I mean, they have all the technology that they got from aliens. Now they're saying the Earth may have been visited by aliens. I would say that it's obvious that it has. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the technology.
Well, those fringe thinkers. And this is what got me. This is kind of the thing that I went, what? They're saying non-carbon based life forms.
Well, yes. Well, there is something about silicon-based life, and
now we're getting into the crystalline entity thing, but that's what they're more or less saying.
Yes, and as far as I know, they've actually trying to introduce it to Earth and into our bodies.
So get this one, Claudia. I love this one. It says Colombano, I think that's how you say it, Colombano, also suggests that extraterrestrials may have figured out technology that humans cannot comprehend yet, making tasks such as interstellar travel possible. What? Now this is the same organization that 30 years ago was calling people who believed in this thing nuts.
Yes, well, I believe NASA was actually started in order to disclose things in unorthodox ways.
Ooh, I like that. Ooh. That just has a certain je ne sais quoi, about it,
Yes.
Well, I happen to agree with you on that. And speaking of NASA, what the heck is this?
Yes, Scott and I were looking at this earlier, and he was showing a video of it, and the thing was rotating, and it continued to look like squarish. And I thought, but that's impossible. The only way an object can do that is if it's a cube. I mean, an asteroid that is shaped like a cube is basically impossible. The probability of that occurring is just impossible. So I don't think this is a real asteroid. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay. First they told me that they're spherical. Then they told me that they're peanut shaped. I'm going, okay. Now we have, which is clearly a square.
Yeah, it
A
is a
cube?
square,
No,
and
no.
as it rotates, it continues to look square. So it can only be a cube. It's a cube.
So when does nature make cubes?
Never.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I'm still in this reality because I got to tell you, it's getting to be more and more like, we're phasing into a whole different reality at times.
Yes, it's very strange reality.
Well, I'm going to look forward to your paper, and if you and Scott do a show on this, that one is going to be well worth the time.
Mhm.
I want to talk about this real quick, Claudia. There was a documentary on HBO, and it was talking about the AI war. And after you watched this, no, excuse me, it was on Showtime. It was almost 2 hours. Claudia, there is a war coming. And I'm not talking person against person, I'm talking robots against humans.
Yeah, I've thought about this as well. Apparently, Skynet, you know the movie Terminator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Skynet really exists. I think maybe the Terminator movies were telling us about some of their plans.
No doubt. What really shocked me, Claudia, I didn't realize what was happening in China.
Uh-huh.
And the rest of the world, you best wake up. If this documentary is on Netflix, get it whatever you can. You should watch it because, Claudia, do you know how many humans have already been murdered by robots?
Really? Oh
Yes.
my.
Yes. And now robots are considered to be sentient. They
Uh-huh.
don't want to be called artificial intelligence. They want to be called, give me 1 second with my notes here. They want to be known as ESs. They want to be known as engineered sentients.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it gets really even more bizarre. It's very clear that automation, and this is what we really have to think about it in terms 30 years ago, we are now seeing the full maturation of automation. And the thing about it is, it's now become a personality. Uh, Eventually, humans will not have any jobs. And this is very, very scary. I mean, it's very scary. So here's one for us.
Yeah.
So Oumuamua, apparently Dr. Albers was not alone.
Hmm.
It's now saying, this is digitaltrends.com, by the way, they have now found a half a dozen other friends.
Oh, wow. It sounds like an invasion.
Doesn't it? It does. I mean, the first one slowed down and then sped up.
Mm.
I didn't think that asteroids could do that. I didn't think comets could do that.
Yeah.
And then changed the inertia to its direction. And now
Yeah.
it's got friends.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you.
So I mean, our skies are getting so strange. I would think they turned our skies into an IMAX movie theater.
Well, I wrote you yesterday because I think that's what's happening. I'm an avid backyard astronomer. Have several
Oh yes.
telescopes.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia, Orion is not where it's supposed to be at.
I'm not surprised. That's what I say. I'm not surprised because people have been seeing the moon in the wrong place all the time. And the reason for that, because it's a holographic projection, and they can't keep it right in the right position for everybody. As you move across the face of the Earth, its position will change because it's not as far as the real moon is. It's very close. So, if you're looking at a picture on the wall, where you see it in relation to where you are changes as you move with respect to the wall. So this is what's going to happen. And I think they have problems. They're having problems with keeping things in the right places.
Well, I know this. Orion is in the southwest, is in the literally in the southern sky, in the southwest sky. It should be much more overhead. But so I don't know. And speaking about the moon, so just this last full moon that we just had last week, I watched the moon in one day, 24 hours, rise almost due east of me. And then the next day, it was northeast of east.
Oh my goodness.
That's a full 27 degrees.
Yeah, that's impossible.
How does that happen?
Because it's not the real moon, it's a holograph. Yeah, I mean, they basically, the only way that's possible if it's not the real moon, it's a holographic projection of the moon. And it's the same thing with the constellations. They're projecting them, they're not real.
I look for the Pleiades all the time, and anyway. So we all remember the eclipse of 17, excuse me. And we know right after that the sun had that X10. They're saying they was an X10 flare. Had it been one day earlier, we would have really got. So this is the result of that flare. They've put all this through. This is INRIL, I think. So here is stereo A up here.
Yes.
There's the blast. Venus took a direct hit. Do you think that would have impacted the planet? Apparently it did, and even we got the bow shock wave of it.
Yeah, Venus does not have a magnetosphere at all. It doesn't have a magnetic field.
Well, so, I think this one may have kicked its, you know what? I mean, watch the thing.
It does have an induced magnetic field due to the solar wind, but and it has an extremely thick atmosphere. So, and it's got an ionosphere, which is induced as well due to the solar wind, which would have protected it somewhat. But yeah, it would have been heavily impacted by this.
Could this have slowed a planet down, Claudia?
No, I don't think that would be strong enough to slow the planet down.
More radiation than anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought that was pretty cool. You and I were talking on this one. I don't know. This is the philosopher side of the show.
Yes, I think this is very, very strange. I think this is very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend testing your DNA because they want to know what your DNA is. And as I said before, the plans for us are not good.
Well, I know one of the DNA companies is actually giving that data over to Big Pharma.
Right, of course.
Yeah, I'm going, okay. So I love this one. For your protection, Claudia.
For your protection, yeah.
Yes.
They always say the exact opposite of what they mean. So when they say for your protection, it means the opposite.
You have nothing to fear.
Our protection.
Yes, that famous line. Well, if you don't have anything to hide, what's your problem?
Yeah, but they have a lot to gain.
Maybe, I like my privacy. So
exactly.
We're talking on this one. I think that this is going to continue, Claudia, to be a subject. Excuse me, that's a UFO.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is. Even the military says we couldn't catch that sucker, and now we're going to talk about that. But anyway, here it is around the world again. Story after story. I wanted to bring this one up, Claudia. So here in Maine, the South American hawk is now in Maine.
Interesting. How did it get there?
Well, it's not just one either.
Oh,
They have apparently more and more. So again, call me paranoid. Um, but when I start seeing nature
hmm.
with these unusual migration paths, that tells me something. If it's not climate wise, then it
Yeah.
has to be electromagnetic.
Yeah, I've noticed the wildlife changing. It changed in South Africa. I don't know, in the early 2000s. There was one year where everything changed from one thing to another. Even the insect life changed
Oh,
from one year to the next.
it's odd that you mentioned that. Here in Colorado, when I first moved here nearly 15 years ago, in May they had and it they called them the Miller moths. And for about 2 weeks, it was just intolerable. These moths were everywhere.
Mm,
They're not here anymore.
yeah.
That
Yeah, I
tells
mean,
me something.
yeah, we in Johannesburg, we used to have this huge insect, which we call the Parktown prawn, which no one liked because if you crushed them, and they were horrible, they would smell terrible and they could bite you as well. So no one liked them, but they were everywhere. And then, and they were mainly summer insects. But the next year they had all gone, they all disappeared.
Well, I know from other people, I think it was Chris with Forbidden Knowledge Channel that down in Louisiana, seeing insects disappearing.
Mhm.
That tells me that something is afoot.
Yeah, there's something not right, definitely. And I think whatever's happening is getting worse very fast.
I think so
And
too.
I specifically wrote a lot of articles about it because it alarms me that I see things happening to the planet. I mean, I'm seeing pink fog everywhere. That this is not good. The signs that the planet X system is affecting our planet to an alarm at an alarming rate now are all there. And
I
we're
agree.
getting severe weather everywhere, tornadoes everywhere. And these objects are causing all this. And it's getting to the point where I believe it's going to become a cataclysmic
I
very,
think
very shortly. And I'm actually very alarmed by what I see.
interesting.
Mm.
I think so many of us are sensing it.
Mm.
I did a video that, that showed every change of the planets. We did one last week,
Mm.
and every one of our planets is changing. I
Yeah.
mean, and when you think about it, that Uranus is on its side now.
Mm.
It's something's going on. Neptune is no longer in its orbit.
Mhm.
There's something perpetuating movement out there.
And don't forget, Earth is the third planet from the sun. Earth is very close to the sun, and Earth is a very energetic planet that it has a lot of energy inside it. I think it has a lot more than Mars. And so Earth will attract a lot of these objects. And that's the problem. When the sun is not dead, but it's at a point where it's so weak, it's no longer attracting these objects like it was before. And then the Earth starts attracting them. That's the problem.
And right where you were saying that is again, I read another white paper is we're finding out things about our planet that is, again, the rules are going to have to be rewritten. I thought
Yeah,
that was a good segue into one of your papers.
yeah, thanks. Yes, so this one is explaining how the dying stars, basically that's what stellar cores are, the stars that have died. And what happens is they lose their planets and turn into stellar cores, and they are the same as comets. And that's one of my recent discoveries, because I didn't know this in the beginning. They come in as comets. And so they are comets, dead objects, and they could be planetary cores or moon cores if they're very small. They are comets. They come in as comets. So this is what happens as it loses energy, as the star loses energy. Its gravitational attraction on its own matter and on the planets that orbit it, or any moons, will decrease. So the planets and the moons will move away from the star or the planet. And that's what I showed there. So this was a very short article just illustrating that. That's what happens. So as the star is losing energy, its planets will drift away into space.
I pulled this one up as well. The reason why I found it interesting, when you look at what astronomers like Mike Brown at Caltech, that he's convinced that, he calls it Planet 9, is out there. He believes that it's, if I got this right, it would have been 4.5 times bigger than Neptune. But when Jupiter came into the picture, Jupiter's gravitational field threw it out. And Mike Brown postulates that, as you have it right here, that, and I'm just going to use this as Jupiter, that it flung it out and it's holding on basically, as I like how the person said, by its fingernails onto an orbit to our sun.
Yeah, I don't really agree with Mike Brown and what he says. I think what they are saying is always looking at the furthest reaches of our solar system, when they should actually be looking at the sun. That's where they are.
How far does our solar system go out?
122 AU. That's the edge of the solar system, but Pluto is at about 40 AU, I think.
So that's, what are we
Pluto
talking, 4 billion?
is basically the edge of the planet part of the solar system.
And we know that for sure, right?
You know, we don't know that for sure. We could have more objects there, but what we do know we have, and what they don't want to talk about, is the fact that we have these huge objects that are basically dead stars that are now in the inner solar system, and some of them are larger than the sun. You know?
I know most people can't handle that. It's
exactly.
like, no, you can't have something like that.
The thing is, they low gravity influence objects. That's why they can come in and not disrupt anything. But at the same time, they energy absorbers. And because they energy absorbers, they're very destructive. But not in the gravitational sense.
Could a stellar core itself, Claudia, then, it could probably most likely attract a lot of dust and debris around itself, right?
Well, it doesn't necessarily attract it. What it does have, and I show there, is it turns into an object with a debris field around it. And that is its own outer layers of material get pulled out into this debris field. It breaks apart. And the debris field is the outer layers that used to be a part of the object.
Interesting. And by the way, I'm assuming that we could be talking hundreds, if not maybe greater miles than that across, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's just an illustration of,
No, I was just trying to visualize that this could be potentially 100 million, maybe 500 million miles.
Yeah, it could. It's most, we saw it in that object in these HI images, how large that debris field was. It was much larger. It would have been like 5 times the size of what I've drawn here.
That was
I just wanted to illustrate, what actually happens. Of course, there will be many, many more pieces than what I've drawn there. It's just difficult to do all these little things.
No, I get the idea on this, the debris field. It's, I still say that that's what's spanking us.
Yeah,
This
it
one,
is. Yeah.
it is spanking us. And
It is indeed.
I think that we're going to see more of this. I love this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
This one's interesting because you see we have what looks like two suns and they look different. And most people would think, oh, one of them's the real sun. But as it turns out, I mean, we look at the bright one immediately, we say, okay, that's a sun simulator. It's white. It's not quite perfectly spherical, but it's white, and the real sun would be yellow. Then we look at the one on the left and say, oh, that's more like the sun would be. It's kind of round. If you look carefully, there's actually a dark outline around it. That's not the real sun. The real sun would not have a dark outline around it. And if you look carefully as well, at the perimeter of the object, just inside, there's a light edge to it. It's lighter than the object, the rest of the object. So this is characteristic of a holographic projection. This is not the real sun either. So they're both sun simulators or simulations of the real sun. Both of them are not real.
You know, we have a listener down in Australia who is a sun gazer. And she reported that the sun changed. She said the sun that she used to sun gaze with was a yellow sun. And she said she went out one day and it was a white sun.
Wow.
And she has that, sent me the email and in detail. And I think that people that actually do sun worshiping would probably be more observant than anyone else, I would think.
Yeah, that's true. But she should also notice that she won't be getting the same energy.
And I think they're noticing that. So anyway, that is a fascinating picture.
It is. But you see, it also tells you, now, if the real sun suddenly showed up, it would be seen from all over the surface of the earth facing the sun. It wouldn't just be seen in one place. That's the other thing. Because when the real sun appears, it's seen from everywhere. And no sun simulator can block it because there's no way to put a sun simulator that's in the atmosphere exactly in front of an object that's 93 million miles away. And it stay there when we move positions across the surface of the earth. It's like trying to align two objects, one's far away, one's close to you, but the moment you move, the one close to you moves.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to hide the real sun with a simulator in the atmosphere. And plus, if the real sun appeared, it would be at exactly the same position in the sky. Well, it depends where you are. You would be at some another time. But it would be in the perfect position, because it's so far away, it's at infinity. And you would be seeing it from that part of the earth where there's daylight. Everywhere on earth you would see it. There will be a few positions where if there is a sun simulator there, it may be aligned. But the moment you move 100 kilometers away, it wouldn't be aligned anymore. You'd see the real sun.
So both of these are...
They both simulations.
Interesting.
They're not the real sun. And one is possibly an actual sun simulator, and the other one may be a holographic projection. Or they could both be holographic projection, but usually the very bright ones are not. And I think I've seen some people saying that they've actually seen the sun turn on at sunrise. It doesn't rise, it turns on.
That's when you look at that, when I'm looking at this one, the one on the right is just, there's something funky about that.
Yeah, it's very bright, very white.
It is white, very white. Yeah,
Yeah, and then
looking at it.
I write again about what I found out, how I started thinking, because in the beginning I also thought your mind sort of thinks, no, the real sun must be there, because we grew up thinking that it's impossible not to have the sun. We cannot have life on Earth without the sun. We need the sun. We cannot live without the sun. Our planet would freeze without the sun. So your mind freezes on that and thinks, no, that the real sun must be there. And that was my thought in the beginning. But now I realize that they've managed through the technology, and I've written an article recently where I said, I think they knew by 1961 that something was happening with the sun. So they've had a lot of time to prepare, and they had alien technology, obviously just in time, to do what they could to use lasers to warm up the atmosphere, to come up with a way to produce a greenhouse layer artificially. So they had the technology to make up for the losses. And so I go through what I discovered, that was in Argentina in 2011. Suddenly the sky went dark in the middle of the day, and the suddenness of it tells you that it was an artificial illumination, because nothing natural causes daylight to suddenly turn into night suddenly like that. It's always gradual. And so I keep showing this picture because I know there are a lot of people out there that still cannot understand that the sun can go dark and we can still be here due to the technology. And this is what happened. Suddenly, it just went totally black. It didn't gradually get black. It just went from light to blackness suddenly. And only an artificial device can suddenly turn off.
You know, I was unaware of this.
You switch it off. It's like switching off your artificial lighting in your house. Switches off because it just malfunctioned and it went off. And so I realized, oh my goodness, there was no sun in 2011. The sun wasn't shining, because if the artificial illumination fails and it goes completely black, that means the sun was not shining. And this is what happened in Switzerland. I think I've talked about this before, but this was what the sky looked like at 10 a.m. And then at 10 a.m., suddenly the sun was in the sky. And, you know, people say, oh, it's because the camera froze. But you see, when cameras freeze, they don't continue to take the same picture or take old pictures and take them as current pictures. That doesn't happen. All that happens is there's no pictures there. And I actually show that the pictures taken at different times are different, even though the sky overhead is the same. In other words, the sky froze, but the pictures are different. And again, you see, at 10 a.m., the sun was not, the real sun was not up at 10 a.m. And it was supposed to be, because this was in winter in January, but in Switzerland, but the sun's supposed to be up at 8 o'clock, about 8 o'clock. So there was no sun in the sky. If the real sun had been shining, we would have seen the sun coming up, the real sun coming up. It didn't.
No.
And then it suddenly appears in the sky with clouds in front of it when there were no clouds before, which means that simulation and the clouds, most of them, are holographic projections.
Oh, I think I know what those are. Ducks. I was looking at this and I'm trying to think, because I come out of the industry and I'm going, what are these? And
I'm not sure what those are. Those could be on the camera casing. I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so, Claudia. I think these are actually the only thing I was looking at that and I'm going, okay, do we have craft flying over the water? But I think
I
that
don't know. I
look
don't
at this.
actually, yeah, look at that. There are black dots all over the place. And the other image was dark. And the thing is, this was observed on 3 cameras in Switzerland at exactly the same time. All 3 cameras seemed to look like the sun was not up at 10 o'clock, and suddenly it was up after that. Although I don't have it all here, I have it in the other articles.
I don't think this is the.
Yeah, those look strange
Yeah, they
indeed.
look very strange. I'm telling you, the world is, Claudia, at times it just.
Yeah. And
So
there I put the 2 images side by side. One is from 8:20 and the other one is the 10 o'clock one. And I show that they are different because that cloud, that fog in front of that hill is definitely different in both images. You can see the different shape of the cloud above the lights there in the center. You can see it's different. And then that long cloud is also different thicknesses in different places.
Mm-hmm.
But the sky, you can see the constellations are exactly the same. So that means the constellations are holographic projections. They cannot be real. You cannot have these constellations in exactly the same place at 8:20 and 10 over, 2 hours later, nearly 2 hours later. So it means they're projecting the sky. They're projecting the constellations in the sky, the night sky.
Listen, you're going to get an argument out of me. I look to the.
You saw it yourself. I mean, you saw Orion suddenly in the wrong place, and that again, that told you immediately that you're not looking at the real Orion.
I don't know what I'm looking at up there.
It would be impossible.
When I start seeing the formation of the lights at times, I'm going, okay. So as we continue, this is pretty interesting. So this is, to me, it's looking like the system is breaking down.
It is. And yeah, I think that's a good point. I actually started thinking in my latest articles that when they started the simulation system, it was working perfectly. And, when we looked up in the sky looked pretty blue and almost natural. But because the sun was now basically too weak to draw the objects, that more and more of them came to the Earth. And they started drawing on the Earth's atmosphere. So the atmosphere was lost over time. And more of them, more and more debris, more and more dust coming into the atmosphere started affecting the illumination in the atmosphere. So the higher altitude illumination is probably not working anymore. And that means that when we look straight up, we're not seeing a blue sky anymore. We're seeing a dark sky. And there's nothing they can do because the atmosphere is not as thick anymore. We're losing the atmosphere. And we must probably have lost the upper atmosphere illumination. It's no longer working because there's so much stellar core dust coming in and it interferes with everything. It stops electrical conduction. It will stop the lasers from working, and it will absorb all light. At least the very low energy stellar core matter will do that. It just absorbs everything. So the illumination in the upper atmosphere is most likely not working. And that's why the system's breaking up. It's breaking down because of more and more stellar cores and their debris fields coming to the Earth.
Doesn't bode well.
No, that's why I am alarmed by what I see. I see more and more luminescent fog, more and more luminescent clouds. And I know that people will just think it's pretty, but it signals something. It signals cataclysmic danger for the Earth.
Here's your article. I found this one interesting because it's odd how I've seen story last week. They were talking about the observatory in Chile that they're now using lasers to artificially layer stars. and for simulations. And here you come out with this, and it appears that lasers, well, gee, it's like they're suddenly showing up everywhere.
Yes, I think that it's very necessary because it's only lasers where you can use, and not, you don't have to use a lot of power to produce a high-powered laser. Let's put it this way. So that they are very versatile when you want to produce strong light, very intense light.
Yeah.
And you know that holograms were invented, I think, in 1942. And, you know, they go along together. You need lasers to produce precise holograms.
Yes.
And so they go together. The technology was there. Like I said, I think they discovered it in 1961. There's the article 464, where I think they signaled that by 1961 they were working on sun simulators. But the ones they gave us the patents to were based on reflectors and arc, high-powered, what are they called? Mercury xenon. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I was thinking as well. I mean, you have an argon, you know, when we talk about
they're like light bulbs, but much stronger, and they high pressure.
Yeah.
So I do show it in one of my articles how large they were, very large. But as you can see here, what we have is laser beams coming from these simulators. So that immediately tells you they're based on lasers. And you can see that pink beam going right across that one there. Mm-hmm. That pink laser beam.
Yes.
So we know they're based on lasers. At least you know, from about 10 o'clock to about sometimes 4 o'clock in summer, you have these ones in the sky. And then at sunset, I think that's when they use the holographic projection ones. And I think at sunrise as well, where they may look more yellow and more round, and they're not as bright. And, you know, they holographic projections. I show that in some of the articles I wrote. You can actually see a plane flying right through one. Yeah. And so, you know, that pink one, that one with the pink laser came from an article 214. And that article I wrote in April of this year. And that's the first time that I analyzed some of the images, and Scott took these images. And I saw that these chemtrails were producing shadows on the clouds. Oh, there they are, lamps. That's the word I was looking for. Arc lamps.
Yes, okay.
So, yeah, so that one comes from one of these pictures. This was a photograph taken by Scott in April of this year. And a little later on, you see that chemtrail. Actually, I think it was before even that image. Before that image, he took these two. And I saw there were shadows on the cloud of this large chemtrail.
Yeah, you got one here coming right through. Look at that.
And I thought, oh my goodness, but that means they're illuminating the atmosphere from within, from below. In other words, they're trying to make the atmosphere look more blue. And that means that I concluded, you know, I wrote in my statements, in my conclusion, that suggests that the sun is in much worse shape than the SDO images suggest. The SDO data suggests, because I had already known that the sun was looking bad, the corona had shrunk a lot in the SDO images. But now, if the sun was not emitting enough light to properly illuminate the atmosphere, so that they had to illuminate it from below, and therefore cause a chemtrail to cast a shadow on cloud above it, that meant the sun was not illuminating our atmosphere properly at all.
Well, here's the conundrum my mind when I look at these is that I'm trying to ask myself, and I'll get this back down to reasonable so I can make my point. What we have here is this chemtrail. Now, light, the sun is coming down, right? This is the idea. Clouds are underneath here. The chemtrails are, well, who knows, 50, 60,000 feet up. I don't understand how a shadow can be cast to an object that would be, how is the sun hitting this? This is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, you see, that's the point. It cannot be the sun. If the sun was illuminating the atmosphere from above, it would be impossible to have any shadows because the light is coming from behind the clouds.
I see something else
from
here
above.
too.
So if you have this amazing light coming from above right through the clouds, it's impossible to have a shadow.
We also have a completely spherical object right here.
Wow, I hadn't noticed that. My goodness, you're right.
I'm blowing this really up because I saw it and it's telling me there it is.
Wow, you're right. There it is. You're right.
There it is.
My goodness.
Perfectly spherical.
Yeah. Wow.
And look how it's diffused with the chemtrail going across.
Yes. Maybe they were covering it up with that chemtrail.
I mean, that's perfectly spherical.
It is perfectly spherical. It could have been one of the objects. And, you know, I wrote about the fact that the smaller ones are coming into our atmosphere. They've been doing it for a long time, and more of them are coming in. And they're basically moon cores, small moon cores. Wow. They are coming in.
All right. This has got mine. I'm intrigued.
I know. I mean, reality is stranger than we ever thought fiction could be.
Yeah. So who's drawing the pentagrams?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, they're over my house all the time. They haven't been kimming as much, but it was just last week, you know. I don't know who the Joker is, you know, because they're literally painting pentagrams in the sky.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, I think they have artificial intelligence behind how they are, you know, doing the chemtrails. It's probably odd. Now, if you look at that, you see some of those lines going through that sun simulator are actually blue laser beams.
Look at this.
Yeah, look at that. It's amazing. And it's hexagonal. You can see it's hexagonal.
Wow, look at this. I mean, it's literally coming in. You have, that's not an artifacting of the lens either. Look at that.
No, it's not. And this is a more recent photograph that Scott also took. And in this one, there's a shadow as well, right next to that street lamp thing. And so that's what I wanted to see. There you are. There's the shadow. Again, it means the sun is not illuminating the atmosphere from above. That's the only way you could even have a shadow. And it means they're illuminating the atmosphere from below.
Yeah.
From below cloud level. They're illuminating the atmosphere, trying to boost the light and produce a blue sky.
Look at that.
Yeah. How can you produce a shadow on a cloud? Because there's more light coming from below than from above. That's the only way. So where's the sun then? The sun's not shining. If they can, with laser light, produce more illumination from below,
Yeah, I
And
mean,
they're illuminating from above as well, don't forget. That means there is no sun. The sun is not there. It's all artificially done within the atmosphere. So here I show this again,
yeah.
how it suddenly went dark. Because to me that this is amazing. And the fact that it happened in 2011, it's 7 years ago.
You know, most people here, if they were being very frank, were not aware a lot of this in 2011.
Yeah, and I
Wow.
think it was working better then. Now there's a lot of malfunctioning going on. And here I show how the sky looks dark right overhead now and has been doing this. And it's not because the sun suddenly went dark recently and we started seeing this, because I started seeing this in 2016, but it's because so much of our atmosphere got lost and so much of the upper atmosphere illumination started to malfunction, that now we only have a thin atmosphere, and when we look straight above through it, we can see that it's dark outside of the atmosphere because it's only a thin layer.
You know, we're living in, I don't know, it's like we're in a fugue.
Yeah.
It's really sometimes hard to get cognitive stabilization of thought and perception. You know.
This is beyond anything. You know, we've been specifically trained to believe that the sun can never go dark.
Yeah.
But yet the Bible speaks about, I mean, I just read, I think it's Isaiah 60 verse 19, that says, it's all over the Bible, that there will not be any sun. God will be the light. There will be no sun no light from the sun. You will not have the sun. The moon will not give its light. And I've been seeing it all over the Bible now.
Well, I want to have someone tell me what happened in 584. No, I've been doing research, and it's very limited in what you can find about the fact that the sun went dark over Europe and all the way over into Eurasia.
Yeah.
I mean, Claudia, I'm looking for this, and the information is very, very limited. 1 or 2 articles.
Yeah. Well, it could be that there was a comet come in.
Oh, that's true. That could have been. Yeah.
And because the dust that comes in, you know, the Bible talks about this plague that causes darkness that can be felt. And basically, this is what this Planet X dust does. When it's in its extreme low energy state, when it makes contact with the atmosphere, it will absorb all light. So it will cause complete darkness. So if enough of it engulfs the earth, then the whole earth will go dark.
Well,
you won't even be able to switch on a light because it does not allow electrical conduction either, because they absorb electrons.
That's the other part of the equation. And I had Jeff Doherty look that up in Matthew. And as he puts it in the literal Greek, it means the sun is going to be turned off. Literally, the expression, as I understand, is like flipping a switch. It will be turned off. Yeah,
and you see, they are in Revelation, it talks about a third of the sun going dark. And when I looked at that, I said, but this means it's talking about a sun simulation system. So sometimes when the Bible then talks about the sun, it's actually talking about the simulated sun.
Well, I have a feeling
it was now, or John saw the simulation system in operation that is now in operation.
Well, and the story of Joshua. I mean, the sun went backwards, and we've got corresponding evidence that in China, they called it the day of the double sunset.
Oh, yes. That, I think, was the Earth reversed its rotation.
Wow. I mean, we'll have to talk more about this.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
You need to write a paper on
Obviously,
that.
God can do anything he wants, but
Yeah, but from a physicist's point of view, just if you look at the inertia, I'd love to see a paper on that. That would be cool.
yeah, the thing is, the forces required are immense.
Yeah.
And plus, you see, when you start doing that to the Earth, reversing its rotation, then and that kind of force should cause earthquakes,
I would
things
say
like that, and it obviously didn't.
it would
So
shake my world.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It would
what
shake
happened.
my world. I mean, if I'm standing there and I'm going, Lynn, the sun's going backwards. It's like, okay. Well, Dr. Albers, boy, I mean, when we do these shows, it's like time travel.
Yes, it goes
Time just
by so
goes,
quickly.
it
Are
goes
we
by.
out of time already? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm looking up there and I went, what happened?
Wow.
So I'm curious, as we go into this new week, what do you see unfolding? I mean, it's almost daily now. We're getting information just thrown at us that, the world seems to be
Yeah.
turning upside down.
I think what I'm most concerned about is huge earthquakes or huge volcanic eruption. Like I said before, we could have earthquakes that are ELE strength, extinction level event, worldwide earthquakes.
By the way, speaking of earthquakes, we'll go a little bit longer. I have a series of some of the pictures from Alaska, and Rex and I were talking about this. Let me show you something here. I don't understand this. So look at how this one came in the way it did. Does that look like an earthquake to you? It looks.
No, that's definitely not an earthquake. You can see it looks a circular pattern there.
It does, doesn't it?
That's definitely a stellar core affecting that.
Look at that.
Definitely. No normal earthquake would do that. I mean, I've actually reached the conclusion that there's a possibility. I don't have the total evidence that all the earthquakes we have on Earth are caused by these objects.
Interesting.
But that is not actually an earthquake. That is a density wave due to an object moving from space down over that area.
Look at that.
That's what it is. It didn't even move across. Usually an earthquake could be by an object moving parallel to the surface of the Earth. This is an object coming down through the atmosphere over that point.
I just thought I'd show that to you.
It's gravitational interaction. It causes a density wave. There's a density wave attached to them, associated with them. That's why we have ocean recession events.
Okay.
Associated with them, they cause highs and lows in density. And as they come down, the density wave affects the ground and causes it to expand and contract, and it breaks.
Well, when I saw that, I went,
Yeah, that is amazing. I like that picture. Maybe you can send it.
I'll send it to you. Absolutely, I will.
That's a lovely picture. I'd love to use it.
It's like you said, it's like something came down and the inertia would do what you would expect it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Well, Dr. Albers, fascinating week. Folks, make sure you go over and support. If you're not a supporter of Dr. Albers, then what the heck are you doing here? And your counterpart, Planet X News, right?
Yes.
Got some.
And we forgot to say hello to
MFA
members.
Yes, sorry about that, folks. you know. Thanks to all the moderators. And, we've had a steady crowd in here of in excess of 400 plus people, 423, 406. So,
Wow.
this again, and I may be bragging on us, but I think our shows are they're getting, how
More
should we say?
interesting.
Yes, they're becoming fuller,
Okay.
well-rounded,
Yes.
balanced. I like that.
Hmm.
So do you have anything you like to say? It's your time. I mean,
Yeah, thank you. It's like I said, I am quite alarmed by what I see happening. I think our planet is at the edge of cataclysmic events like we've never seen before. Before we had comets coming through, they would come through, they would go. Now, because our sun is in such a weakened state, that the Earth is attracting these objects continuously, we're not going to get a break. And it looks like things are getting very, very hot. There are lots of them coming now, and there's lots happening. And
I don't like the heat.
Yeah, I know.
But you don't like the cold.
I mean, they're not fast acting, but you get to the point where you realize something has got to give now. And we're getting so many tornadoes all over the world. And these objects are causing that.
And tornadoes where they did not have tornadoes before.
Yes, definitely.
And poor the folks down there in Australia. They're either getting snow, abundant hail, or blistering hot. So it's just, well, okay. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Boy, Claudia, thank you. It is just, I've told you before, it's the highlight of my week. I enjoy this hour, and it's just,
it's wonderful.
They're going over hours, but we've asked people have asked us if we can extend it out. So there you go. You ask and you got it.
Wonderful. People get what they ask for.
Exactly. I go by the old axiom: you have not because you ask not.
Oh, that's good.
See, yeah. I think a guy named Solomon said that. you know.
I think it's in the New Testament as well.
It is. I believe it is. In fact, it's in the book of John, the Gospel of John. I still remember those days. Okay, well, Claudia, thank you. I'm going to exit. Everyone, thank you for joining us. You enrich Claudia's life, my life. We're honored by you coming in here, and thank you for your participation. And I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat room. You guys are the best. You're good, loving people.
Wonderful.
It's just good, loving people. It's just, wow. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Claudia. I'll see you next week. Everyone, we'll see you next week. And be good to yourselves and learn this. Be good to your neighbor, and life will become a lot more easier, won't it? Yeah, that's what I say. All right, Claudia. Thank you, dear. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.